Hello everyone, it's Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni, Ayurvedic MD, registered holistic nutritionist, back today with another amazing, interesting topic. So today we are going to talk about menstruation. Today we are going to talk about everything menstrual cycle. So whether you have, we'll talk about the normal cycle, we'll talk about the Ayurvedic specifics of your cycle, and we will also discuss what exactly does it mean to have a healthy cycle, right? So what are the signs, what are some symptoms that your cycle is abnormal? So we'll be discussing a lot of these. And I've divided this into part one and part two. So today we'll be talking a lot about part one from an Ayurvedic perspective. I'm going to talk more about hormones in tomorrow's Facebook Live. I just thought it would be good to separate it out because it's a huge topic and I didn't want to keep talking for 2 hours, right? So that's one of the reasons why I have decided to split it into two different topics. So let's get started. Again, so for those that are seeing this live, if you can post a comment, so I know you're watching this live. And if you are someone who's watching this as a replay, you can put a hashtag as replay. At any point of time, if you have any questions about the Facebook Live or the topic that I discuss, please post your questions in the comments and also feel free to tag me so I don't miss any of your questions, right? So let's get started. So, what exactly is a menstrual cycle, and what exactly is, the purpose, right? So, menstruation is a physiological phenomena that occurs, about the age 13 to 15. It could be a little earlier in today's world. And when we talk about puberty, right, when we talk about um, men and women, reaching their puberty, so it's kind of the start of, the hormones are getting active in the body and they're heading towards reproductive years, right? So in women it is characterized by menstruation, in men there's no menstruation. So every month there is a menstrual cycle where women will discharge blood, right, from their uterus, and that is extremely important to have like that is extremely important for you to have an each cycle every month, right? As a woman, it is extremely important to have a regular cycle, and we're going to discuss why and what's the reason. So we'll be discussing everything. I'm just going to say a quick hi to everyone who's here. So hi Shiv Shankar ji, nice to see you. Hello Usha ji, hi Uttam ji, nice to see you. So I know a few more of you are watching me, so if you want to just say hi, or let me know you're here, that would be fantastic. So we are discussing menstrual cycle. Menstruation is extremely, extremely important, as I mentioned before. And it is something that denotes that you are in your reproductive phase, or you have reached the reproductive years, right? So that is one of the signs, like that is one of the reasons why menstruation occurs. So every single month, a woman will discharge ovum, or what's known as the egg. And if the egg fertilizes, then a fetus or a baby is conceived, right? And then the cycle ceases, and the blood, which is going to kind of used for the cycle, is going to all work around and nourish the baby. That's the whole concept. But on when this fertilization doesn't occur, right, the ovum is discharged out along with a lot of blood, and that is the reason why you have menstruation, right? And a lot of people talk about different health aspects, but there's not a lot of discussion on the whole menstruation, because until a few years ago it was thought about as a big taboo, right? Nobody would discuss about menstruation. It would all be hidden behind the doors and nobody talks about it. But let's try to understand what exactly this menstruation is and where does it come from. So I can see Swati is here, I can see Chitrakaku is here, and Madhu is here too. So hi everyone. So menstruation, when we look at an Ayurvedic perspective, it is known as Upadhatu, right? Or it is like a sub tissue of your Rasadhatu, which is your first tissue layer. So some understand the first tissue layer as plasma, some understand it as lymph, right? What I think is it's a much broader term. It's the one tissue that's nourishing everything else. So for those who are new to this, I'm going to describe a little bit about the physiology. So when you eat food, the food is transformed through your digestive fire, right, which is known as Jaఠragni, into something known as Aharasa, which is the essence of your food. And this essence of your food undergoes further digestion by what's known as the Agni for Rasadhatu, or the fire for the Rasa tissue, right? And that's when the Rasadhatu is formed, right? And this Rasadhatu undergoes further processing, and during which what is formed is known as Artava, or Rajas is the name, or uh, not Rajas, sorry, Raja is the name, or it's called menstruation, right? So menstruation is known as an Upadhatu and not a Mala, right? Though it's discharged every month, it's known as Upadhatu because it is also going to nourish the fetus, right? So anything that nourishes comes under the concept of dhatus, anything that provides stability, anything that holds and nourishes, and has structural value is understood as a dhatu in Ayurveda. And this is one of the reasons when we talk about menstruation, it is an upadhatu or a sub tissue, right? And it's formed by rasadhatu. And it also has characteristics of rakta or blood, right? So when we talk about the cycle, the discharge, it's not just a lymph discharge or a white discharge. It's actually a discharge that also consists of blood that is secreted from the body, right? So the cycle is again depend on moon, right? So when we talk about the lunar cycle, a woman's cycle should ideally coincide with the moon, and ideally you should be menstruating around the new moon time, and the full peak of the ovulation should reach around the full moon time, right? So that's when you're in maximum sync. And because the moon also governs your emotions, right? So that because the moon also governs your emotions, and the moon is also intimately connected to your cycles, your emotions are also intimately connected to your cycles. Now when we look at the site of the uterus, if you have studied the chakras, or the seven wheels that we talk about, right? So these are formed in your energy body. So the second chakra or sacral chakra is kind of controls your, or is the uterus is the site of it, right? So it's extremely important to have a regular menstruation. It's extremely important to have a regular cycle for the health of your own mental and emotional well-being. And it's also extremely important for your energetics of the sacral chakra, right? So if there are any blockages, if you're not menstruating, that itself can impact your sacral chakra. If you're having a lot of bleeding, that could impact it too, right? So your menstruation is also intimately connected to your sacral chakra. So these are a few things to really understand, right? So the healthiest flow that we talk about, when you're most in tune, usually occurs on new moon, and then the ovulation is around the full moon, right? So again, when we talk about Vata, Pitta, Kapha, right? So these are the three doshas, or the three bioenergies in the body that should be controlled at all times. And these also participate in different physiological events in the body. So when we talk about menstruation or menstrual cycle, these three are also going to participate in the menstrual cycle, right? So when you're in the phase of active menstruation, when you're discharging blood, that is controlled by Vata dosh, right? So Vata is the energy, it's the wind energy, or it's the energy that is very mobile and dynamic, right? Or the energy of movement, and that is what governs your cycle, the active menstruation phase in the cycle, right? So there is a specific kind of vayu of the five vatas, or a specific kind of vat of the five vata types, known as the apan vayu, which is situated in your pelvic region, and that is responsible for menstruation. So if you are not menstruating, right, or if you have any issues with menstruation, if you have any blockages, if you're not ovulating, so the entire uterine tract, including your ovaries and your reproductive field, is controlled by this apan vayu. So if there are any menstrual irregularities, any abnormalities, any issues, that could be an imbalance in the Vata dosh that's governing, right? Apan Vayu. And this Apan Vayu has a downward movement. And this is also one of the reasons why, there's a lot about menstrual regimen when we talk about Ayurveda. So there are do's and don'ts in Ayurveda, that Ayurveda will always tell women not to exercise too much, right? Because you don't want to vitiate your body vata, and that can also impact the downward movement of your apan vayu, right? Which is discharging the menstrual blood. So that can create a lot more aggravation, and vata is something that can easily go out of balance in your body. So it's extremely important to follow some protocols during menstruation. That's also one of the reasons why you don't eat too much, right? Because your body is changing, especially, you're actively discharging, you're tired, it is a little bit burden on your body as well, and your digestive fire is not at peak during the menstrual phase, the 4 days, right? That is why you should be eating lighter food, you should be eating easier to digest food, you should not eat too much. And because this is the vata phase, a lot of women experience bloating during their period time, and as soon as they finish their period, the bloating subsides, right? So they experience a lot of cramping, they experience a lot of backache during the period time, and as soon as the period is done, it subsides. This could be because of vata aggravation. If you have any issues related to vata, or the vata dosh in your body is aggravated, this is why it happens, right? So having hot water is a simple remedy that's going to help your body. It helps circulation, it helps ignite your digestive fire, and anything that's warm is going to subside the excess vata, right? And that is also one of the reasons why you can take a hot water bag and put it on your abdomen if you're having a lot of cramping. Something as simple as a hot water bottle, on your uterus is going to help relax the uterus, increase the circulation there, and make you feel better. Or if you have a lot of backache, something as simple as hot water bottle, just the heat is going to help with circulation and balancing the vata, right? So that's the first part that we're discussing. So this is physiology, that your cycle, the active phase of menstruation where you're discharging blood, is governed by vata. Try not to do any activities that are going to aggravate your vata dosh at this time, right? So vata is aggravated by two things. One is you're working beyond capacity, and that leads to depletion, or the other one is obstruction in its channel. So if you're eating too much, right, if you're creating that digestive toxin we've spoken before called ama. So ama is when you're eating beyond your capacity, or you're eating when your digestive fire is really weak, right? So if you're cooking food at a really low temperature, the food is not going to get cooked, right? And that is not going to get digested in your body, that is not going to get assimilated in your body, that is neither going to get excreted, and it keeps circulating in your body, known as ama or digestive toxins, and it can create a lot of blockages in the body, right? And this ama can be formed on a very subtle level as well, and that can create blockages in various parts of your uterus as well. So sometimes, ama can also lead to things like uterine fibroids, and sometimes ama can also lead to not having ovulatory cycles, right? So the Graafian follicle that should rupture doesn't end up opening or rupturing, right? That can also be caused because of ama. So ama is can create a lot of coating around your organs or around your cells, and create a lot of issues in the body. Another best way for ama is to fast a little bit, right? So during menstruation, don't fast for too long, but try to eat a light diet, and try to eat a warm diet, and drink lots of hot water, right, to maintain your healthy cycle, especially in the active menstrual phase, right? So that's what we discussed, that there's a lot of bleeding, there's a rise in vata, and it's the vata dosh that's actually helping you discharge all that menstrual blood out of your body. So this phase can last anywhere from 3 to 5 days, right? And another thing I would love to discuss about, menstruation, is that there are certain characteristics that have been given when we talk about menstrual cycles, right? So there are like lots of acharyas or Ayurvedic, experts have described the quality of blood, and they've described how exactly it should look, what, you know so it is red, it could be slightly brighter, right? But it's not very dark. If you're getting extremely dark brown, then that also shows a lot of vata vitiation. So you have vata dosh, which is aggravated. So if you are not having normal quantities, if you have very scanty bleeding or spotting, that also could be attributed to excess vata dosh in your body. And if you have a lot of heavy bleeding, and if there is extremely like pungent odor, right, that could be because of pitta dosh, because any odor is created, or any like really foul odor could be created because of excess pitta, right? Where it could have a slightly yellowish tinge, or it could be like bright red, but it would just smell like rancid. And the third is kapha, which would have a lot of for kapha, it could have like a lot of stickiness to it, right? So these are the three abnormal things that you can notice when you are in your cycle. So usually a healthy blood should be bright red in color. One of the other most important characteristics is it does not stain, right? So if you're having any stain with your period blood, if you just wash it with water, the stain should go away. If the stain, even if you're rubbing it with water and the stain doesn't go away, it means that the menstrual blood is impacted by one of the doshas, and it's not like the healthier blood, right? So there is some kind of dosha aggravation, and which is the reason why it's staining. Menstrual blood, technically, if it's healthy menstrual cycle, it should not stain. There shouldn't be a foul odor is the third one, right? So there should not be a foul odor. And usually the size also, the size, or sorry, the quantities should also be normal. So it should not be extremely heavy, right? There should not be a lot of clotting, neither should it be extremely scanty. Now, there are different women also based on your prakriti or dosha type. You might have different cycles, right? So usually the pitta kind of women have longer, heavier cycles. Some kapha women, could have maybe a 3 day decent cycle, and vata women could have a low, like 3 day, but maybe a scantier cycle, right? So the cycle sometimes also depends on the habits of, like, sometimes the mother and daughter might have similar pattern of cycles as well. So that's something to understand depending on your dosha type, right? I'm going to quickly look at the question. So Swati is asking me what's the reason for painful periods. So I had just mentioned that, a lot of the active menstrual cycle, when you are discharging blood, that is governed by Vata. So a lot of the pain, cramping, spasms can occur because of Vata dosh, right? So if you have any kind of Vata aggravation, if you have, worked too much in the yard, or if you have exerted yourself too much, right, that can cause Vata imbalance, and Vata is going to create a lot of cramping, right? Because the nature of Vata is to dry and also create spasms and all. So it is usually due to the aggravation of Vata dosh. That is why you could have painful periods for most part, right? So with bleeding, again, as I mentioned, it would differ according to different people. Now when we talk about different doshas, if I want to go a little bit into details, so when we talk about a vata kind of imbalance in the body, that could lead to a lot of discomfort, right? So if you have any pricking or sharp spasmodic pains, or if you have a lot of pain in the lower abdomen, or you feel like somebody's stabbing you, those could be vata dosha disorders leading you to have that much pain, right? So if there is vata aggravation, what you will also notice is there could be some issues with your emotions as well. There could be anxiety around your period time. There could be a lot of nervousness or also fear, right? And sometimes the blood is going to be darker in color. It could be like brownish, and there won't be a lot of mucus. It's going to be more like dry. And you could also have a lot of stiffness. So your back could feel a lot stiffer. And you could also have like ant crawling sensation around your body, so I don't even know how to describe that sensation, but like ants are creeping around. So that could happen because of vata imbalance, right? um, Also, before the menstruation, you could have PMS in a similar way. Some women experience PMS. Again, is not a normal condition. Not everybody should notice PMS or have mood swings related to your menstruation. So I'm going to discuss that in like a few minutes. So when we talk about pitta kind of flow, right? And pitta flow is could be also because you have a pitta dosh dominant in your body, or it could also occur because your pitta has been vitiated a lot, right? And usually we talk about aggravation or imbalance here. So there shouldn't be any burning, right? So if you experience any kind of burning during your menstruation, that usually has to do with pitta dosh, which is out of balance. If you're getting extremely angry and irritable, right? That is the reason your pitta is out of balance. That is why you're experiencing that anger or irritability or short temperedness. If you have a yellowish flow, or if you have like a fleshy smelling or foul smelling heavy flow, right? So that is created by pitta imbalance. And any excess body temperature where you're feeling really hot, right? If you're having breast tenderness, if you're having a lot of breakouts, acne, if you feel nauseous, if you feel vomiting, sometimes women also get diarrhea during the period time. So this could happen because of your pitta being out of balance during your cycle, right? And then we go towards kapha. So kapha dosh is the nourishing tissue that we talk about, but it can also create a few imbalances if it's out of balance in your body, right? So for a kapha cycle, now this if kapha is getting aggravated during your cycle, right? Or if you have any signs of kapha out of balance in your body and you're having this cycle, it is going to impact your raja, right? So what happens is you have a dull discomfort. You're not going to have a lot of pain prick or stabbing sensations, but you just feel heaviness, like really heavy in your lower abdomen. And you could also experience itching. What happens with emotions with a kapha imbalance is, you feel depressed, you feel like shutting the world down, not doing anything. And you are also sort of addicted to food at this time, or start emotional eating, right? When we look at the menstrual flow, it's heavier, right? And there's a lot of mucousy discharge. And you also retain lots of water. You feel bloated. You might get yeast infections. You might have a lot of swelling on your feet, and you also want to sleep a lot, right? So you also want to kind of just be in bed all the time, and that is characteristic of a kapha imbalance during your menstrual flow, right? So we've discussed so far menstruation, what a normal menstruation looks like, and then we've discussed the imbalances created by three doshas, vata, pitta, kapha, for your menstruation. So this is, any questions so far? I'm just waiting to see if you have any questions or. Yeah. So if you have any questions, you can always post them in the comments right here. So now that we've spoken about the main menstrual phase, right? So what happens after menstruation is um, there is the other phase that starts, which is known as Rutukal in Ayurveda, right? So after you finish menstruation, it could be day 3, it could be day 5. From there, about 12 to 16 days is where your kapha, and this is the normal kapha in the body, this is not the abnormality. So kapha in the body is going to govern this part of your cycle, the first half of the cycle after menstruation, right? And this is where your endometrium, or the inner layer of uterus, starts thickening. and developing more glands, and you generally feel the glow. You start experiencing a lot of well-being and peace, and usually the hormone associated here is estrogen, right? So you start feeling a little bit grounded, a little bit settled, and your body starts getting ready for ovulation, right? So ovulation happens around day 14, technically in the modern, and maybe day 14 to anywhere from day 12 to 16, to be like, depending on people's cycles. So that's the time when you feel alive, and you are like, your skin is really good and everything just starts feeling good. Your mood shifts to being really good at this time as well, and that is characterized by the kapha phase. And after the ovulation, if the ovulation has happened but fertilization does not occur, what ends up happening is, after ovulation, the ovum kind of gets disintegrated because there's no fertilization. And usually if fertilization occurs, pitta takes part in this phase, right? So what happens is, a lot of blood tissue layer is built up. Endometrium is engorged with a lot of blood vessels. So it's potentially trying to prepare for fertilization. So if fertilization occurs, then placenta and everything is going to be formed. If fertilization does not occur, the pitta phase is still going to be there. But at the end of the pitta phase, then starts another menstrual cycle where you lose all the blood, right? Because there is no baby forming, there is no fetus forming, there is no fertilization. So your body is going to get rid of all the excess blood that it's not going to need, because there is no fetus to provide nourishment to, right? So a few things that we will discuss with basic, menstrual hygiene, and basic things that always during your menstruation, this is the time for rest and rejuvenation, right? And that is one of the days why in the olden days, especially in the Indian culture, a woman would sit in another room and she would not cook, and she would just be by herself, right? So we think about it as a sort of tradition, but or a part of the culture. But the reason was because she has already vata dominance in her body. Vata dosha is already dominant in the body, and if you make her work more, if she goes on about doing all the works, there is an easy chance of vata aggravation. So that is one of the reasons why you should take it easy, right? Try not to lift heavy weights, try not to exercise beyond your capacity. Walking is completely fine, but your body needs that rest. And this is something that I was pretty shocked to see in the Western culture, that life goes on about like nothing has changed, nothing has happened. And um, your body needs that rest, especially around the time of your menstrual cycle, just to honor yourself. Just slow down, just take time to spend with yourself, and just try to rejuvenate, just try to um, calm down, and really take time to be easy on your body, right? You can meditate, you can reflect on yourself. Hydration, drinking lots of water is extremely important. When we talk about rasadhatu, or when we talk about this artha or menstrual blood, there is also a lot of water. So you also need that, right? So drinking lots of water, making sure you're well hydrated, right? Following a really good daily routine is extremely important. So waking up earlier in the morning, going to bed at before 10 o'clock is ideal, right? So try to go to bed earlier, especially during the time when your vata is at peak in the body because of the menstrual cycle. If you try and stay up late, it's going to aggravate your vata further, right? So try to avoid late nights, try to avoid any kind of Netflix binging where it's going to create a lot of anxiety, right? So try to avoid things that will create issues with your mind and create more anxiety. So try to avoid that and honor yourself, give yourself the time. One of the best ways to ground is called Nadi Shodhan Pranayam. So we've talked about alternate nostril breathing before. The importance of alternate nostril breathing is, there are the right and the left channels of the body. There's the sun channel and the moon channel, and you really try to center it and bring it to what we call sushumna. So Ida, Pingala are two of the different channels, in the body. And when you ground and get into that central channel, everything just starts flowing smoothly, right? So if you have lots of anxiety, if you have lots of fear or any kind of stress around your cycle, the best way to keep grounding your mind is to just do alternate nostril breathing. And this is something extremely simple. You can do it a lot of the time, like throughout the day, right? And for those who really want to exercise, for those people who really want movement, so I'm not against moving your body during your period time. You don't have to be a couch potato, but try to do gentle yoga. Try to do something that's nourishing to you. Try to do some restorative yoga. Try not to aggravate that vata dosh, because it can create issues. And another experience that I can talk about is, with women, we have to be really in tune with our hormones. We have to be really in tune with our bodies as well. If you start exercising beyond your capacity, and I've also seen it in a lot of athletes who lift extremely heavy. So some of the runners, some of the athletes who are pushing their body beyond capacity end up losing their menstrual cycle, right? And because we also talk about menstruation as the moon cycle, moon also governs your minds and emotions. So if you're not having a regular cycle, that itself could lead to a lot of emotions getting just you getting caught up in your emotions and not be able to release, right? So this is also one of the reasons why having a menstrual cycle every month is extremely important, right? So if you're not menstruating because you're on birth control pills, or if you have an IUD, you have to work with someone and make sure that it's not impacting you, right? And we will be discussing that tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be talking about hormones. Tomorrow I'll be discussing more about female hormones. We'll talk about estrogen, we'll talk about progesterone, and we'll also talk about not over the counter sorry, oral contraceptives, and what are the side effects of oral contraceptives. We'll talk a little bit about IUDs as well, and we'll talk about adding those extra hormones in the body, whether you need it or not, right? So, and what are some alternatives? So that's what we're going to discuss in tomorrow's Facebook Live. Today I'm just kind of keeping it easy and trying to introduce um, simple concepts of Ayurveda for a healthy flow, right? So these are something like with diet and all, these are something really simple things. Try to eat easy. Try to not eat something extremely heavy. Drinking lots of hot water, warm water is fantastic during your period time. Not having a lot of activity. Don't do a lot of yard work if you're on your cycle. You will get exhausted, you will feel depleted. uh, Really taking the time to nourish yourself, really, you know pomegranates are one of my favorite fruits, right? So pomegranates, beets, anything also that's rich in iron can help you build up that iron, because you end up losing a lot of iron through blood as well. And if you are low in iron, your cycles could also be heavier. So for those women who experience heavy cycles, right, there could be a reason that you're already low in iron, and that's causing your cycle to be heavy as well, right? And if you are having a heavier cycle, then you will feel a lot of depletion. So taking care, making sure your body is balanced, and whether you are planning for reproduction, having babies, or whether you're past having babies but you still have your cycle, for each and every woman, your cycle is extremely important. Again, I know I'm repeating myself over and over again, but whether you think it has a purpose or it doesn't have a purpose anymore, it is extremely important for your mental emotional well-being, right? So always honor yourself at that time. And if you are someone who is in your early 30s, or in your early 40s, and you are going towards perimenopause, right? You're experiencing a lot of cycle changes, that could also lead to a lot of emotional events, that could also lead to early menopause. Please try working with someone, because if you start balancing your vata dosh, you can easily balance your hormones too, right? So you can prolong your menopause. So that is the one thing with Ayurveda. There's a lot of rasayan chikitsas, and there are lots of therapeutic protocols where you can maintain the balance of your body. right? And where you can maintain your hormones as well, really well. And it's also seen in women that, till the time you have your hormones, and again, we're going to discuss this tomorrow, is till the time you have your hormones, you are protected against heart attacks, you're protected against osteoporosis, you're protected against muscle loss, right? But once you start losing your hormones, what ends up happening is you're prone to heart attacks. You start losing a lot of bone calcium. Your bones start becoming brittle. So that is one of the reasons why always focus on your cycle, stay grounded, and also your cycle is, a part of, when we talk about emotions, right? When we talk about energies and energetic bodies and chakras, even if you have a lot of mental emotional overwhelm, it is going to impact your cycle. And that is also one of the reasons why women experience either, a cycle which is delayed, or maybe earlier if they get super stressed, right? So that is also because your mind is connected there, right? Or your emotions are connected. So that's all for today. I don't see a lot of questions for today, but tomorrow we'll be discussing about estrogen, we'll be discussing about progesterone, we'll be discussing about oral contraceptives and what are some side effects. We'll be discussing what are some alternatives as well, right? So that's all for tomorrow's Facebook Live. Around the same time, I'll be posting uh, the timing of the Facebook Live at least 2 hours in advance, but it will be around 8 or 8:30 for sure. So thank you all for watching. If you have a friend or a family member that wants to know this information, please, or needs to know this information, please share this video with them. Or you can also tag them in this video, right? And it will talk, like it will help them understand their own cycle. It will, if there is somebody that that's experiencing a lot of cramping and they're doing lots of activities before their period, if you share this video, then they will understand, okay, I'm not supposed to do a lot of physical exhaustion before the period, right? So please share this video. You can always tag your friends here. And if you have any questions at any point of time, please, comment here with your questions. So again, it's Dr. Manjari Nadkarni signing off. Thank you all for watching this live. Thanks for all your support. And I will see you soon tomorrow with part 2 of Ayurveda for healthy menstruation. Thank you, Chitra Kaku. Thanks, Uttamji. So I will see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.